The use of "thus I have heard" comes from instructions given to Ananda by the Buddha just before the Buddha entered nirvana. One day, Shakyamuni Buddha announced, "Tonight, in the middle of the night, I am going to enter nirvana." When Ananda heard this, he was so distraught that he cried like a baby for its mother and called, "Buddha, Buddha, please don't enter nirvana. Please don't cast us all aside." He cried and pleaded until his brain got addled, probably because he thought that this was what he should be doing. Just then a blind man came by, one unlike other blind men. His ordinary eyes were blind, but his heavenly eye was open. Because he was blind, he wasn't burdened with a lot of false thinking, and his mind was very clear. "Venerable One," he said, addressing Ananda, "why are you crying?" "The Buddha is about to enter nirvana," Ananda replied. "How can I hold back my tears?" The eyeless elder replied, "How can you do your work if you cry? After the Buddha enters nirvana, we will have to establish many things. There is work to be done and questions to be asked." "What questions?" said Ananda. "The Buddha is going to nirvana. What is there left to do? What could be more important than the Buddha's nirvana?" The blind man, whose name was Aniruddha, and who was foremost in the capacity of the heavenly eyes, said, "There are 4 extremely important matters which must be settled." "What are they?" asked Ananda. "Compiling the sutras is one," he said. "With what words should we begin each sutra?" "True," said Ananda. "That is important. It's a good thing you brought it up. I never would have thought of it myself. All I can think of is the Buddha going to nirvana. What is the second question I should ask?" The Venerable Aniruddha said, "We have taken the Buddha as our teacher, but when he goes to nirvana, who will be our teacher? Should we look for another teacher?" Right, said Ananda. "We should find another good teacher. You're quite right. What is the third?" Aniruddha said, "Now we live with the Buddha, but when he goes to nirvana, where will we live?" "That is very important," said Ananda. "Without a place to live, how can we cultivate the way? Should we find someplace else to live? These 3 matters are extremely important. What is the fourth?" Aniruddha said, "The Buddha can discipline evil-natured bhikshus, but after he goes to nirvana, how shall we take care of them?" Now, an evil-natured bhikshu does nothing but disturb other people. If you meditate, he walks around, clump, clump, making a lot of noise so that no one can enter samadhi. When people are walking, he sits to meditate. "Look at me," he says, "I sit much better than all of you," and pretends to have entered samadhi. When people are bowing to the Buddha, the evil-natured bhikshu likes to recite sutras, and when people are reciting sutras, he likes to bow to the Buddha. In general, he's got to have a special style, the evil-natured bhikshu style, and he does not follow the rules. If everyone goes one way, he goes the opposite way. He has no consideration for anyone else, but expects everyone to notice him. "He's terrific," everyone says. "He really cultivates." He insists on being special so that others will notice him and say that he is the best. Fiercely competitive, he must be the strongest, outstanding among the best. He stands like an Ashura with his hands on his hips as if to say, "See what a great hero I am?" He has to be different and outdo everyone else. When the Buddha was in the world, he could control such evil-natured bhikshus, and they obeyed his instructions. But after he entered nirvana, who would supervise them? And who could control the evil-natured layman who says, "Look at me, I'm more dedicated than all of you other laymen"? Actually, it's just because of him and his special style that no one else is dedicated. Aniruddha said, "When the Buddha goes to nirvana, what are we going to do with the evil-natured bhikshus and evil-natured laymen?" "These are important questions," said Ananda. "I'll go ask right away." He wiped his eyes, blew his nose, and ran off to the Buddha. "Buddha, Great Master," he said, "I have 4 questions which I would like to ask you before you go to nirvana. World-honored one, won't you be compassionate and answer them?" "All right," said the Buddha. "Buddha," said Ananda, "you have spoken many sutras. When we compile and edit them, with what words should they begin?" The Buddha said, "All sutras spoken by the Buddhas of the past, present, and future begin with the words, 'Thus I have heard,' which means, the Dharma which is thus can be believed. I personally heard it." Ananda said, "Secondly, you are our master. When you enter nirvana, who will be our teacher? Please instruct us. Should it be Mahakāssyapa?" The Buddha said, "No. When I go to nirvana, take the pratimoksha, the precepts, as your teacher." To accord with the Buddha's instructions, those who leave home must first receive the precepts. Then Ananda said, "We have always lived with you, Buddha, but when you enter nirvana, where are we going to live?" Shakyamuni Buddha said, "When I go to nirvana, all bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasakas, and upasikas should dwell in the 4 applications of mindfulness. Mindfulness with regard to the body, feelings, thoughts, and dharmas. 1. Contemplate the body as impure. If you know that the body is impure, you won't love it, and without love there will be no attachment. Being without attachment is freedom. So first of all, regard the body as impure. 2. Contemplate feelings as suffering. Feelings are all a kind of suffering, whether they are pleasant or unpleasant. For pleasant feelings are the cause of unpleasant feelings. 3. Contemplate thought as impermanent. Thoughts shift and flow and are not permanent. 4. Contemplate dharmas as devoid of self. Ananda further asked, "How should we treat evil-natured bhikshus?" The Buddha said, "That is no problem at all. Simply be silent and they will go away. Fight evil people with concentration power. Don't be moved by them. If they are evil, don't be evil in return. If a mad dog bites you and you bite him back, you're just a dog yourself. Evil-natured people are born with bad tempers. All you can do is ignore them, and they will soon lose interest and leave." "Oh," said Ananda, "it's really very simple." Why did the Buddha tell Ananda to use the 4 words, "Thus I have heard"? These 4 words have 3 meanings. 1. To distinguish Buddhist sutras from the writings of other religions. Non-Buddhist religions in India began their texts with the words A or O, which means non-existence or existence. As these opposing religions see it, all dharmas in heaven and earth either exist or do not exist. If it is not non-existent, they say, then it exists. And if it doesn't exist, then it's non-existent. In general, as far as they can see, nothing goes beyond existence and non-existence. In the beginning, there wasn't anything, they write, but now there is. None of these religions speaks of true emptiness and wonderful existence. Their doctrines may resemble them somewhat, but they don't explain them in detail. Buddhist sutras are thus. They are just that way. The Dharma is just that way. You ask, what is not that way? Everything is that way. If you question it and say, what is that way? Then nothing is that way. Thus is extremely wonderful. The words, thus I have heard, distinguish Buddhist sutras from the writings of other religions. 2. To resolve the doubts of the assembly. The Buddha knew that everyone would have doubts. After the Buddha's nirvana, while Ananda and Mahakāssyapa were editing the sutras, Ananda sat on the Dharma seat to speak the Dharma. Seeing him sitting on the Buddha's seat, the members of the assembly suddenly gave rise to 3 doubts. A. Some thought, Shakyamuni Buddha hasn't completed the stillness. He hasn't gone to nirvana. Our master lives. They thought Ananda was Shakyamuni Buddha come back to life. B. Others thought, Shakyamuni Buddha has already entered nirvana. This must be a Buddha from another direction, north, east, south, or west. C. No, said others. The great master has gone to nirvana. He hasn't come back to life, and the Buddhas of the other directions teach people in other directions. They would never come all the way to the Saha world. Why, Ananda himself must have realized Buddhahood. The assembly held these 3 doubts until Ananda said, Thus I have heard. As soon as he said them, everyone knew that Shakyamuni Buddha hadn't come back. They knew it was not a Buddha from another direction, and that Ananda had not become a Buddha. The Dharma, which is thus, is that which Ananda personally heard from Shakyamuni Buddha. 3 doubts suddenly arose, and 4 words resolved them. 3. To end the assembly's debates. Of all the great bhikshus, Ananda was the youngest. He was born on the day Shakyamuni Buddha realized Buddhahood, and when the Buddha went to nirvana, Ananda was only 49 years old. Why was Ananda selected to explain and edit the sutras? Old Kāssyapa was the eldest, and Madhgalyayana and Shariputra were both of higher status than Ananda. There were many others in the assembly with more way virtue and learning than him. He was the youngest, and it was likely that no one would believe in him and that many would try to be first. One might say, I've heard more sutras than you, so I should explain them. But when Ananda said, Thus I have heard, everyone knew that these were not Ananda's principles, or the principles of the Great Assembly. This is the Dharma which I, Ananda, personally heard the Buddha speak. It is not your teaching, and not my teaching. It is our Master's teaching. You are not first, and I am not first. This silenced the assembly's debates. The 4 applications of mindfulness. 1. Contemplate the body as impure. Everyone sees his body as extremely precious. Because you think it is real, you are selfish and profit-seeking. Without a body, there would be no selfishness. We think our bodies are real and actual. Being selfish, we create offenses and commit evil deeds. We cannot let go of the affairs of the world and calculate on behalf of our bodies all day long, looking for good food, beautiful clothes, and a nice place to live. A little happiness for the body. On the day we die, we are still unclear. My body is dying, we moan. How can it do this to me? At that time, we know that our bodies are unreal, but it's too late. Too late for our regrets. Ultimately, is the body real? Stupid people think so, but wise people see it merely as a combination of the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. It is not ultimate. Then, you ask, what is ultimate? Our own self-nature is bright and all-illumining. Our own self-nature is perfect and unimpeded. It is nowhere, and nowhere it is not. To the end of empty space, it exhausts the Dharma realm. Our bodies are temporary dwellings where our self-nature comes to live for a time. But the person dwelling in the hotel is not the hotel, and in the same way, his body is not him. The traveler who thinks that he is in the hotel is mistaken. If you know that the body is just like a hotel, you should seek that which dwells within it, for once you have found it, you will recognize your true self. From the time of birth, the body is impure, a combination of its father's semen and its mother's blood. The child grows up with greed, hate, stupidity, pride, and doubt. He commits offenses, creating the karma of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and taking intoxicants and drugs. Offense karma is created because of the body. But is the body such a precious thing after all? No. A precious jewel is pure and undefiled, without stain or the slightest trace of filth. Our bodies, on the other hand, have 9 apertures which constantly secrete impure substances: tears from the eyes, wax from the ears, mucus from the nose. There are religions whose members eat mucus. They say that they are smelting the cinnabar. They also eat tears and earwax, thinking that these filthy substances are precious jewels. Isn't that pitiful? 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 2 nostrils make 6 holes. The mouth is full of phlegm and saliva. That's 7 holes. Add the anus and the urinary tract and you have 9. Would you call this pure? Everyone knows that excrement and urine are unclean, and if you don't believe it, just try seasoning some fine food with a tiny pinch of excrement. No one will eat it. People will want to vomit instead because it is unclean. Would you call this body dribbling filth from 9 holes a jewel? If it's a jewel, why do such vile things flow from it? If you don't bathe for a week, you itch and squirm and a thick crust forms on your body. Where did it come from? Soon you stink with an odor even a dog finds repulsive. What is the advantage of having a body? Contemplate the body as impure. If you see how filthy it is, do you still love it? Are you still attached? What's the use of loving such a dirty thing? Then can I stab myself? Can I kill myself? You ask. No, that's not necessary. You must borrow this false body and use it to cultivate the truth. The self-nature dwells within the body. You enter the body of 5 skandhas and the yin and yang merged in a combination of purity and filth, which is your body. If you cultivate, you can go up and attain purity. If you do not cultivate, you will go down, create offenses, unite with filth, and turn into a ghost. Go up, become a Buddha. Whether or not you cultivate is up to you, however. Nobody can force you to cultivate. The Venerable Ananda thought that because he was the Buddha's cousin, he didn't need to cultivate. He thought that the Buddha would just give him samadhi. But the Buddha couldn't do that, and so it was not until after the Buddha's nirvana, when Ananda was about to edit the sutras, that he finally certified to the 4th stage of arhatship and realized that he could not neglect cultivation. Be mindful that the body is impure. Don't be so fond of it, and don't take it as a treasure. You say, I can't stand criticism. I can't stand it. Who are you? If they hit me, I can't bear it. It hurts. Really? If you put your attachments down and see through them, there is neither pain nor not pain. Who is in pain? What exactly hurts? If someone hits you, pretend that you bumped into a wall. If someone scolds you, pretend that they are singing a song or speaking Japanese. How can they scold you if you don't understand them? Are they speaking Spanish or Portuguese, French, German? I've never studied languages, so I don't understand. They can scold you, but it's nothing. In general, once you see through, break and put down the attachment to your body, you win your independence. Contemplate your body as impure. Don't regard it with so much importance. It's not important. Contemplate feelings, thoughts, and dharmas as impure also. 2. Contemplate feelings as suffering. Feelings may be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. From the point of view of the 3 sufferings, unpleasant feelings are the suffering within suffering. Pleasant feelings are caught up in the suffering of decay, and neutral feelings are the suffering of process. Wake up! Everything you enjoy is a form of suffering. If you know that pleasure is suffering, you will not be attached to it. I often say, enduring suffering puts an end to suffering. Enjoying blessings destroys blessings. If you endure your suffering, it will pass. If you enjoy your blessings, they too will pass. Contemplate feelings as suffering. The body, thought, and dharmas are also suffering. Although there are 4 applications of mindfulness, You can divide them up. Each of the 4 characteristic qualities, impurity, suffering, impermanence, and the absence of self, can be applied to the body, to feelings, to thoughts, and to dharmas, making 16 applications in all. 3. Contemplate thoughts as impermanent. The Vajra Sutra says, "Past thought cannot be obtained. Present thought cannot be obtained, and future thought cannot be obtained. All your thoughts are unobtainable. They flow without stopping, and so they are impermanent. The body, feelings, and dharmas are also impermanent." 4. Contemplate dharmas as without self. Basically, there are no dharmas. Where does the self come from? The self is a combination of the 4 elements and the 5 skandhas, a creation of form dharmas. Outside of the 4 elements and the 5 skandhas, there is no self. So contemplate dharmas as being without a self. The 4 applications of mindfulness are very wonderful. If you investigate them thoroughly, understand and dwell on them, you will be unattached and will attain true freedom. If you are attached, you can't be free. Why? Because you're attached. So dwell in the 4 applications of mindfulness. Dwell and yet do not dwell. Ananda's 4th question concerned evil-natured bhikshus. The Buddha said, "Be silent, and they will leave." Even while the Buddha was in the world, there were evil-natured bhikshus, laymen, and ordinary people. If you ignored them, the Buddha said, they will get bored and leave. "Thus I have heard." Thus fills the requirement of 1. Faith. The Dharma which is thus can be believed. Dharma which is not thus cannot be believed. "I have heard" fills the requirement of 2. Hearing. Since the ears do the hearing, you may ask, why does it say, "I have heard"? This is because whereas the ears are just a small part of the body, "I" refers to the whole person. "At one time" fills the requirement of 3. Time. Why, you may ask, doesn't the sutra give the month, day, and year? Calendars differ from nation to nation. Some countries begin the year in the 1st month, some in the 2nd or 3rd month of another country's calendar. There is no way to indicate the date, and what is more, if the date were given, people would start doing research to determine if it was correct. Because the sutra only states, "at one time," there is no demand for historical verification. In order to speak the Dharma, there must be an 4. Audience. In this case, it was the gathering of great bhikshus. The audience must also have the time to come and listen, for if they don't stay, of what use is their faith? They must have the time to listen. They must want to hear the Dharma, and they must believe in it. Then there must also be a Dharma-speaking host. In this case, the Buddha is the 5 host, and the 6 place is Shravasti in the garden of the benefactor of orphans and the solitary. Therefore, in the opening sentences of the sutra, all 6 requirements are fulfilled. Shravasti is the name of a city in India. Translated, it means abundance and virtue, because the 7 jewels, gold, silver, lapis lazuli, crystal, mother of pearl, red pearls and carnelian, and the objects of the 5 desires, beauty, wealth, fame, food, and sleep, were in abundance there. The people of Shravasti were very intelligent and had the virtue of great learning and liberation. You could also say that the objects of the 5 desires are forms, sounds, smells, taste, and tangibles. The states connected with the objects of the 5 desires turn people's wisdom upside down. The eyes run off after forms, the ears after sounds, the nose after smells, the tongue after tastes, and the body after tangibles. Deluded people spin around and around in pursuit of the objects of the 5 desires. The people of Shravasti had great learning and refinement. They were also liberated, free and unfettered, and were only slightly attached. In the Jeti Grove, in the garden of the benefactor of orphans and the solitary, Amitabha, whose name means benefactor of orphans and the solitary, was a wealthy elder who lived in the city of Shravasti. He was also known as Sudatta, which means joyous giving. He was a rich man, but he didn't understand the Buddha Dharma. In fact, he had never even heard the Buddha's name. One day, while arranging for his son's marriage, he visited a friend, the wealthy elder Shantano. That night, Shantano rose and began to decorate his house. Sudatta asked, "You're adorning the house so beautifully. Is there to be a celebration? Is your son going to be married?" "No," said Shantano. "I have invited the Buddha to receive offerings." When Sudatta heard the word Buddha, every hair on his body stood straight up on end. "Who is the Buddha?" he gasped. The Buddha is the crown prince, son of King Suddhodana. He would have been the king, but he left home to cultivate the way and became a Buddha instead. I have invited him here to receive offerings. Having heard the word Buddha, Sudatta couldn't get back to sleep. Shakyamuni Buddha knew that Sudatta's heart was sincere, and he emitted a light which shone so brightly that Sudatta thought it was dawn, got out of bed, and went out of the city. The city gate was locked, but the Buddha opened it with his spiritual powers, and Sudatta proceeded to the Buddha's dwelling in the bamboo grove. Just as Sudatta arrived, 4 gods descended, circumambulated the Buddha 3 times, and then bowed in order to show Sudatta the proper gestures of respect. Because Sudatta had never seen the Buddha or heard the Dharma, he followed the gods' example, and the Buddha explained the Dharma to him. Sudatta was delighted and said, "Buddha, you have so many followers, you really need a big place to live. I shall prepare one and invite you to live there." "Fine," said the Buddha. Sudatta looked, but he couldn't find the right land. Finally, he saw Prince Jeta's garden. It was big enough, but Prince Jeta refused to sell. "If you want to buy my garden," he laughed, "first cover it with gold coins. That's my price." Sudatta didn't stay to bargain with him. He just said, "Okay," and moved his treasury, piece by piece, to the garden and covered the entire grove. "Now your garden belongs to me," he said to Prince Jeta. "I was only joking," said the prince, annoyed. "I'm keeping it for myself. How could I sell it to you?" "You told me that you would sell it if I covered it with gold, and I took you at your word," Sudatta said. "If you plan to be a king, you really shouldn't joke with people. A king's word must stand." "Very well," said the prince. "You covered the ground with gold, so the park is yours, but you didn't cover the trees. The trees are mine, but I'll give them as a donation. Because the trees belong to Prince Jeta, it is called the Jeta Grove, and because the garden was Sudatta's, it's called the Garden of the Benefactor of Orphans and the Solitary." In China, when King Wen established the nation, he assisted 4 kinds of poor people: widows, widowers, orphans, and the childless, or solitary. Sudatta also gave aid to these 4 kinds of people, and so he is known as the benefactor of orphans and the solitary, that is, Anatabindada, together with a gathering of great bhikshus, 1,250 in all. This phrase fulfills the audience requirement. Together means that they studied under the same teacher, lived in the same place, and investigated the Buddha Dharma together. They all had the same Bodhi mind and had opened the same wisdom, attained the same result, and would together realize Buddhahood. Because they had so much in common, the text reads, "together." The sutra text first lists the assembly of sound hearers because they are sages who have transcended the world. The bodhisattvas are listed next because they are sometimes bhikshus and sometimes laymen. They cultivate the middle way, and so they are listed in the middle. The gods and dragons of the Eightfold Division are listed last because they are in the world and represent the common people. Sometimes the bodhisattvas are present in the Dharma assembly, and sometimes they travel to other worlds. The bhikshus, on the other hand, were the Buddha's constant followers. They always listened to the sutras and the Dharma, and so they are listed first. Great has 3 meanings. 1. Great. 2. Many. And 3. Victorious. Bhikshus are respected by kings and great men, and so they are great. They have cut off afflictions and destroyed the many evils. They are different from and victorious over all external religions. Bhikshu also has 3 meanings. 1. Seeker of alms food. 2. One who frightens Mara. And 3. Destroyer of evil. When one ascends the precept platform to be ordained, one's request for ordination may be granted after 3 appeals. An earthbound yaksha ghost informs a space-traveling yaksha who flies up to inform the heavenly demons. The heavenly demons are terrified and tell Mara, the king of the 6th desire heaven, "The Buddha's retinue has increased by 1, and ours has decreased by 1. At this, Mara's palace quakes. Thus, a bhikshu is one who frightens Mara. He also destroys the evils of the 84,000 afflictions because he has resolved his mind on Bodhi. These bhikshus were assembled together as a sangha. Sangha is a Sanskrit word which means harmoniously united assembly. They live together without bickering or fighting and are united in terms of phenomena and noumena. In terms of the noumenal aspect, they have given proof to liberation and to the unconditioned. In terms of the phenomenal, they are united in 6 ways. 1. As a harmonious group, they dwell together. They don't look at one another's faults and fight among themselves. No one has a special style. There are, for example, no solitary drinkers or smokers out of harmony with the rest. Everyone who lives with the Sangha must abide by the Sangha's rules. 2. With harmonious speech, they do not quarrel. They don't gossip. They don't say, so-and-so has such and such an asset, and so has such and such a fault. 3 frogs have 6 eyes. Their speech is harmonious, and what they talk about is important and has principle. They don't argue. 3. With harmonious thoughts, they enjoy the same things. One person likes to study the Buddha Dharma, and so does the next. One is vigorous, and the next is even more so. The more one person cultivates, the more the next cultivates. Everyone makes vigorous progress. Every day they are more energetic, not more lazy. Cultivating more and speaking less, their minds are in harmony. 4. With harmonious views, they have the same liberation. 5. With the same precepts, they cultivate together. 6. In harmony, they mutually share their benefits. 1,250 in all. These were the Buddha's constant followers, his retainers. When the Buddha went to lecture sutras, these arhats always went along, even if they had already heard the sutra. There were actually 1,255 disciples, but for the sake of convenience, the number was rounded off to 1,250. Where did the disciples come from? In the deer park, the Buddha first taught the 5 bhikshus. Then Yashas, the son of an elder, and his 49 disciples took refuge. The Venerable Shariputra and the Venerable Mahamadgalyayana each had 100 disciples who took refuge. That makes 255. The Kashyapa brothers had 1,000 disciples, making 1,255, and rounded off 1,250 in all. The 3 Kashyapa brothers had 1,000 disciples. 500 were with Uruvilva Kashyapa. Uruvilva means papaya grove, for it is said that he cultivated in a papaya grove. Some accounts claim that he had a lump on his chest which resembled a papaya, some describing it as concave and some as convex. What is probable is that he cultivated in a papaya grove, and, liking to eat papayas, in time a papaya grew on his chest. Papayas are good for curing illnesses of the lungs. Uruvilva Kashyapa had 2 brothers, Gaya, meaning city, or Elephant Head Mountain, and Nadi, meaning river. The 2 brothers had 500 disciples between them, and so the 3 brothers had a total of 1,000 disciples. The Buddha first taught and crossed over the 5 bhikshus in the deer park. Then he considered who to cross over next. Seeing that the potential of the 3 Kashyapa brothers had matured, he went to the dwelling of Uruvilva Kashyapa. He could not, however, simply say, "I have come to save you, Uruvilva Kashyapa. Do you believe that?" He had to employ a clever expedient device, and so he said, "It's late, and I can't travel any farther. May I stay on here?" Uruvilva Kashyapa, a powerful fire worshipper, saw the Buddha and thought, Why is he so special? Try as he might, he couldn't figure the Buddha out. Strange, he thought. I can see anyone else's background just by looking. Why can't I see his? Finally, he said to the Buddha, "Very well, you may stay here." And he put him in a cave where Uruvilva Kashypa's protector, a dragon, lived. The dragon was extremely fierce and scorched to death anyone who came near him. In the middle of the night, the dragon tried to burn the Buddha, but the Buddha had entered the fire-light samadhi and couldn't be burned. The Buddha put the dragon in his bowl. More than likely, he didn't have to trick him by saying, "You can only make fire. You can't jump into my bowl," as the sixth patriarch would later speak to another dragon. You can only manifest a big body, not a small one. The Buddha used a very natural method to get the dragon into his bowl. Then he explained the Dharma to him, and the dragon took refuge. Seeing such spiritual penetrations and transformations, Kashyapa knew that his own virtue was not as great as the Buddha's. Thereupon, he took refuge and instructed his 500 disciples to do the same. Soon after leaving home, they gave proof to the sagely fruit. Kashyapa's two brothers were also fire worshippers, but when they saw that their brother had become a bhikshu, they wanted to leave home as well. They did, and along with their 500 disciples, they soon gave proof to the sagely fruit. That makes 1,255 disciples. Out of gratitude for the Buddha's deep kindness and his teaching, they were the Buddha's constant followers. No matter where the Buddha went, they accompanied him and protected the assembly. For example, here we lecture on the sutras, and those who come to listen protect the assembly. Even though they already understand the doctrines, they still take time from their busy schedules to come and listen. All great arhats whom the assembly knew and recognized. Arhat, a Sanskrit word, has three meanings which correspond to the three meanings of the word bhikshu, because being a bhikshu is the cause of attaining arhatship, and arhatship is the result of cultivation as a bhikshu. It's a matter of cause and effect. An arhat is 1. Worthy of offerings. On the causal ground, a bhikshu is a seeker of alms food, and in the result, he is worthy of the offerings of gods and men. 2. One without birth. A bhikshu frightens Mara, and in the result, as an arhat, he undergoes no further birth. 3. A slayer of thieves. On the causal ground, a bhikshu destroys evil, and in the result, as an arhat, he has slain the thieves of ignorance and afflictions. On the causal ground, the bhikshu frightens the demons of the 5 skandhas, the afflictions, and death. Death is also a demon. Some cultivators practice diligently, yet when they fall sick and confront death, they are afraid. "I'm going to die," they cry, turned by the demon of death. Real cultivators fear nothing. They are not afraid of life, and they are not afraid of death. Life and death are the same. Death and life are not different. There is no distinction between them. If while alive cultivators can be as if dead, they will have no thoughts of desire. How can one have desire, greed, hate, stupidity, pride, or doubt as a dead man. When one arrives at this state, there are no afflictions, no troubles at all. This is true happiness. This state is not easy to attain, however. On the other hand, it is not difficult either. If you want to, you can do it. For example, when one of my disciples became extremely sick, he said to me repeatedly, "I'm really suffering." I said, "The more suffering you undergo, the better. The more you suffer, the more you will understand." One day it seemed as if he had died. He went to a happy place full of people. "Happiness is happiness," he said, "but I want to see my teacher." "Who is your teacher?" the people asked. As soon as they heard his teacher's name, they were unhappy. "You can't see your teacher here," they said. "Then I'm leaving," he said, and came back. He didn't die after all. You might say that he has conquered the demon of death. Subsequently, his skill has increased greatly. Whom the assembly knew and recognized. These arhats were all very famous, and their virtue was respected by the entire population. Everyone knew their names and recognized their faces. Sutra. Elders Shariputra, Maha Madgalyayana, Mahakashyapa, Mahakatyayana, Mahakaustila, Ravata, Sudimpantaka, Nanda, Ananda, Rahula, Gavampati, Pindola Bharadvaja, Kaladanyan, Mahakapina, Vakula, Aniruddha, and others such as these, all great disciples. Commentary. Elder is a term used to show respect for another's position. There are three kinds of elders. 1. Elders in age. 2. Elders in the Dharma nature. 3. Elders in blessings and virtue. An elder in age has lived for many years. A Dharma nature elder understands the Buddha Dharma and comprehends his self-nature. Regardless of his age, he is nonetheless an elder in terms of his wisdom and intelligence. One such as this may be young in years, but he can lecture on sutras and speak the Dharma. His wisdom is limitless, and his eloquence is unobstructed. Elders in blessings and virtue are fortunate because people like to make offerings to them. Because of their virtuous conduct, they are fields where, by making offerings, one plants the causes of future blessings. Shariputra was a Dharma nature elder. At the age of 8, he studied and mastered all the Buddha Dharma in only 7 days, and he could out-debate all the Indian philosophers. His name is Sanskrit. His father's name was Tishya, and his mother's name was Sarika. Hence, he was known as Upatishya, Little Tishya, and as Shariputra, the son of Shari. The word Shariputra may be translated 3 ways. 1. Body, son, because his mother's body was extremely beautiful and her features very refined. 2. Egret, son, due to his mother's eyes, which were as beautiful as an egret's. And 3. Jewel, sun, because her eyes shone like jewels. Shariputra's mother's eyes were beautiful, and when she bore this jewel-eyed son, his eyes were beautiful too. He was the foremost of the Shravakas in wisdom. While still in the womb, he helped his mother debate, and she always won. In the past, whenever she had debated with her brother, she had always lost. But while she was pregnant with Shariputra, her brother always lost. "This isn't your own power," he said. "The child in your womb must be incredibly intelligent. He is helping you debate, and that's why I lose." Thereupon, he decided to study logic and traveled to southern India, where he studied for many years. There was no electricity at that time yet, but he studied by day and by night. He mastered the 4 Vedas, the classics of Indian knowledge, without wasting a moment. He didn't take time to mend his tattered clothing, wash his face, or even cut his nails, which grew so long that everyone called him the long-nailed Brahmin. Having mastered various philosophical theories, he returned to debate with his sister's son. He had spent a great deal of time preparing for the event, and felt that if he lost, it would be the height of disgrace. "Where is your son?" he asked his sister. "Shariputra has left the home life under the Buddha," she said. The long-nailed Brahmin was displeased. "How could he?" he said. "What virtue does the Buddha have? He's just a Shramana. Why should anyone follow him? I'm going to bring my nephew back." He went to the Buddha and demanded his nephew, but the Buddha said, "Why do you want him back? You can't just casually walk off with him. Establish your principles, and I'll consider your request." "I take non-accepting as my doctrine," said the uncle. "Really?" said the Buddha. "Do you accept your view of non-accepting? Do you accept your doctrine or not?" Now the uncle had just said that he didn't accept anything, but when the Buddha asked him whether or not he accepted his own view of non-accepting, he could hardly admit he accepted it, for that would invalidate his doctrine of non-acceptance. But if he said that he didn't accept it, he would contradict his own statement of his doctrine and his view. He was therefore unable to answer either way. Before the debate, he had made an agreement with the Buddha that if he won, he would take his nephew, but if he lost, he said that he would cut off his head and give it to the Buddha. The uncle had bet his head and lost. So what did he do? He ran. About 4 miles down the road, he stopped and thought, "I can't run away. I told the Buddha that if I lost, he could have my head. I'm a man, after all, and I should keep my word. It's unmanly to run away." Then he returned to Shakyamuni Buddha and said, "Give me a knife. I'm going to cut off my head." "What for?" said the Buddha. "I lost, didn't I? I owe you my head, don't I?" he said. "There's no such principle in my Dharma," said the Buddha. "Had you won, you could have taken your nephew. But since you lost, why don't you leave home instead? Will you accept me?" "Yes," replied the Buddha. So not only did the nephew not return, but the uncle didn't return home either. At age 8, the great wise Shariputra had penetrated the real mark of all dharmas in only 7 days, and defeated all the philosophers in India. When Shakyamuni Buddha spoke the Amitabha Sutra without request, Shariputra was at the head of the assembly because only wisdom such as his could comprehend the deep, wonderful doctrine of the Pure Land Dharma door. Not only was he foremost in wisdom, he was not second in spiritual penetrations either. Once, a layman invited the Buddha to receive offerings. Shariputra had entered samadhi, and no matter how they called to him, he wouldn't come out. He wasn't being obnoxious by showing off, thinking, "I hear them, but I'm not moving. That's all there is to it." No, he had really entered samadhi. When he didn't respond to the bell, Madhgalyayana, foremost in spiritual powers, applied every bit of strength he had, but couldn't move him. He couldn't even ruffle the corner of his robe. This proves that Shariputra was not only number one in wisdom, but also in spiritual penetrations. He wasn't like us. If someone bumps us while we sit in meditation, we know it. Shariputra had real samadhi. We should look into this. Why was Shariputra foremost in wisdom? Why was he called the greatly wise Shariputra? It's a matter of cause and effect. In a former life, in the causal ground, when he first decided to study, he met a teacher who asked him, "Would you like to be intelligent?" "Yes, I would," said Shariputra. "Then study the Dharma door of prajna wisdom. Recite the Great Compassion Mantra, the Shurangama Mantra, the 10 small mantras, and the Heart Sutra. Recite them every day and your wisdom will unfold." Shariputra followed his teacher's instructions and recited day and night while standing, sitting, walking, and reclining. He didn't recite for just one day, but made a vow to recite continuously, to bow to his teacher, and to study the Buddha Dharma life after life. Life after life he studied prajna, and life after life his wisdom increased until, when Shakyamuni Buddha appeared in the world, Shariputra was able to penetrate the real mark of all dharmas in only 7 days. Who was his former teacher? Just Shakyamuni Buddha. When Shakyamuni Buddha realized Buddhahood, Shariputra became an arhat, and because he obeyed his teacher, he had great wisdom. He never forgot the doctrines his teacher taught him, and soon, in 7 days, he mastered all the Buddha's dharmas. When one has not studied very much Buddha Dharma in the past, one learns mantras and sutras slowly. One may recite the Shurangama mantra for months and still be unable to recite it from memory. It is most important, however, not to be lazy. Be vigorous and diligent. Like Shariputra, don't relax day or night. Those who can't remember should study hard, and those who can should increase their efforts and enlarge their wisdom. You should consider, why is my wisdom so much less than everyone else's? Why is his wisdom so lofty and mine so unclear? Why do I understand so little? It's because I haven't studied the Buddha Dharma. Now that we have met the Dharma, we should vow to study it. Then in the future we can run right past Shariputra and study with the greatly wise Bodhisattva Manjushri, who is far, far wiser than the Arhat Shariputra. This is the cause behind Shariputra's wisdom, a useful bit of information. 3 American Shramaneras and 2 American Shramanerikas have now received the complete precepts, Shramanera, Bhikshu, and Bodhisattva precepts. You could say that they are new bodhisattvas returning to America. People who have received the Bodhisattva precepts cultivate the Bodhisattva way, and people who have received the Bhikshu precepts uphold the Buddha Dharma and teach living beings. When these 5 return from Taiwan, we Americans should protect them as precious treasures. All of you should be their Dharma protectors, for they are returning to America to establish American Buddhism, so that in the future, Americans will be able to cultivate and realize Buddhahood. This is my hope. The Sanskrit word maha has 3 meanings. 1. Great. 2. Many. And 3. Victorious. As an elder, one is respected by many kings and great ministers. Having studied the sutras in the Tripitaka, an elder has victoriously transcended all non-Buddhist religions. Madhgalyayana is Sanskrit and means descendant of a family of bean gatherers. His name also means turnip root, because his ancestors ate turnips when they cultivated the way. He is also called Kolita, after the tree where his father and mother prayed to the spirit of that tree for a son. This venerable one was the foremost in spiritual penetrations. In his cultivation of the way, when he first certified to arhatship, he obtained 6 kinds of spiritual penetrations: the heavenly eye, the heavenly ear, the knowledge of others' thoughts, the knowledge of past lives, the extinction of outflows, and the complete spirit. With the heavenly eye, one sees not only the affairs of men, but every action of the gods as well. With the heavenly ear, one hears the gods speaking. With the knowledge of others' thoughts, one knows what others are thinking and planning before they speak. With the knowledge of past lives, not only does one know what they are thinking, but one clearly knows their causes and effects from former lives. As to the extinction of outflows, all people have outflows. They are like leaky bottles. Pour something in the top and it flows out the bottom. The bigger the hole, the faster the flow. The smaller the hole, the slower the flow. If there are no holes, there are no leaks, no outflows. The extinction of outflows is the absence of leaks. What outflows do people have? Food and drink become the outflows of feces and urine. If you like to get angry, that's an outflow. If you are greedy, hateful, or stupid, you have outflows. Pride and doubt are outflows too. With outflows, nothing can be retained, but without them, all leaks disappear. Outflows are simply our faults. People, if we don't have big sicknesses, we have small sicknesses. And if we don't have small sicknesses, we have little faults. If we don't have big outflows, we have small outflows. And if we don't have small outflows, we have slow leaks, little bad habits. A lot can be said about outflows. The absence of them is called the penetration of the extinction of outflows. The penetration of the complete spirit is also called the penetration of the realm of the spirit, and the spiritual penetration of everything as you will it to be. The complete spirit means that you have an inconceivable power. Not even the ghosts and spirits can know of your 1,000 changes and 10,000 transformations, for you have penetrated all realms and states without obstruction. As you will means that everything is the way you want it. If you want to go to the heavens, you go. If you want to go down into the earth, you go. You can walk into the water without drowning, and into the fire without burning. If you're in your room and think, I'd rather not go out the door, you can walk right through the wall. How can this be? It's as you will, according to your thought. However you think you would like it to be, that's the way it is. You just have to make a wish and you attain your aim. These are the 6 spiritual penetrations. When Mahamudgalyayana first obtained these penetrations, he looked for his father and mother. Not so much his father, actually, as his mother. Where was she? She was in the hells. Why? Because she had not believed in the triple jewel, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And what is more, she had slandered them. She had also eaten fish eggs and flesh, and thereby had killed many beings. Seeing her in the hells, Madgalyayana sent her a bowl of food. She took it in one hand and hid it with the other because she was afraid the other hungry ghosts would see it and try to steal it from her. Being greedy herself, she knew that other hungry ghosts were greedy too, and so she covered it over stealthily. Although it was good food, her heavy karmic obstacles prevented her from eating it. When the food reached her mouth, it turned into flaming coals which burned her lips. Madgalyayana's spiritual powers could not prevent the food from turning into fire, so he asked the Buddha to help him. The Buddha told him to save his mother by arranging an ulambana offering. Ulambana means releasing those who are hanging upside down. The Buddha told Madgalyayana that on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, the day of the Buddha's delight, and the monk's pravarana, he should offer all varieties of food and drink to the Sangha of the 10 directions. In this way, he could rescue his mother so that she could leave suffering and obtain bliss. Madgalyayana followed these instructions, and his mother was reborn in the heavens. Not only was his mother saved, but all the hungry ghosts in the hells simultaneously left suffering and attained bliss. Now you might say, I don't believe that food and drink could become fire when hungry ghosts eat them. Of course you don't believe it. But the world is full of strange, strange things. It would be hard to speak about them all. How much the less can one be clear about those things beyond this world? Let's take water, for example. People and animals see water as water, but the gods see it as lapis lazuli, and the hungry ghosts see it as fire. It's all a question of individual karmic manifestations. Gods have the karmic retribution of gods, men of men, and ghosts of ghosts. This is how, with the Buddha's help, Madgalyayana saved his mother. Mahakashyapa. Again, Maha means great, many, and victorious. The Sanskrit word Kashyapa means great turtle clan, because Mahakashyapa's ancestors saw the pattern on the back of a giant turtle and used it to cultivate the way. Kashyapa also means light-drinking clan, because his body shone with a light which was so bright it seemed to drink up all other lights. Why did his body shine? 7 Buddhas ago, in the time of the Buddha, Vipassana, there was a poor woman who decided to repair a ruined temple. The roof of the temple had blown off, and the images inside were exposed to the wind and rain. The woman went everywhere and asked for help, and when she had collected enough money, she commissioned a goldsmith to regild the images. By the time he was finished, the goldsmith fell in love with her and said, "You have attained great merit from this work, but we should share it. You may supply the gold, and I will furnish the labor free." So the temple was rebuilt and the images regilded. The goldsmith asked the woman to marry him, and in every life for 91 kalpas they were husband and wife, and their bodies shone with purple and golden light. Mahakāssyapa was born in India, in Magadha. When he was 20, his father and mother wanted him to marry, but he said, "The woman I marry must shine with golden light. Unless you find such a woman, I won't marry." Eventually they found one, and they were married. As a result of their good karma, their bodies shone with gold light, and they cultivated together and investigated the doctrines of the way. When Mahakāssyapa left home to become a bhikshu, his wife became a bhikshuni called Purple and Golden Light. Mahakāssyapa's personal name was Pipala, because his parents prayed to a spirit of a pipala tree to grant them a son. As the first patriarch, Mahakāssyapa holds an important position in Buddhism. When Shakyamuni Buddha spoke the Dharma, the great Brahma Heaven King presented him with a golden lotus, and Shakyamuni Buddha held up the flower before the assembly. At that time, hundreds of thousands of gods and men were present, but no one responded except Mahakāssyapa, who simply smiled. Then the Buddha said, "I have the right Dharma eye treasury, the wonderful nirvanic mind, the real mark which is unmarked. The Dharma door of mind-to-mind transmission has been transmitted to Kāssyapa." Thus, Mahakāssyapa received the transmission of Dharma and became the first Buddhist patriarch. Venerable Mahakāssyapa is still present in the world. When he left home under the Buddha, he was already 160 years old. By the time Shakyamuni Buddha had spoken Dharma for 49 years in over 300 Dharma assemblies, Kāssyapa was already over 200 years old. After Shakyamuni Buddha entered nirvana, Kāssyapa went to southwestern China to Chickenfoot Mountain in Yunnan province. It has been over 3,000 years since the Buddha's nirvana, but Mahakāssyapa is still sitting in samadhi in Chickenfoot Mountain, waiting for Maitreya Buddha to appear in the world. At that time he will give Maitreya the bowl which the 4 heavenly kings gave Shakyamuni Buddha, and which Shakyamuni Buddha gave him, and his work in this world will be finished. Many cultivators travel to Chickenfoot Mountain to worship the patriarch Kāssyapa, and on the mountain there are always 3 kinds of light: Buddha light, gold light, and silver light. Those with sincere hearts can hear a big bell ringing inside the mountain. It rings by itself, and although you can't see it, you can hear it for several hundred miles. It's an inconceivable state. Mahakāssyapa was the foremost of the Buddha's disciples, both in ascetic practices and in age. None of the Buddha's disciples was older, and none of them endured more suffering. The term ascetic practice means making an effort, raising up one's spirits with courage and vigor. The cultivation of the 12 kinds of ascetic practices is a sign that the Buddha Dharma is being maintained. For as long as they are practiced, the Dharma will remain in the world. If they are not practiced, the Buddha Dharma will disappear. Of the 12 ascetic practices, the first 2 deal with clothing. 1. Wearing rag robes. One gathers unwanted cloth from garbage heaps, washes it, and sews it into a robe. There are many advantages in wearing rag robes. First of all, they decrease greed. When you wear them, your heart is peaceful and calm. They also prevent others from being greedy. If you wear fine, expensive clothes, others may become envious and may try to steal them, but no one wants to steal rag robes. So the first ascetic practice benefits you and others. Those who have left home are called tattered sons because they wear rag robes. 2. Wearing only 3 robes. One's only possessions are 3 robes, a bowl, and a sitting cloth. The first robe is the great robe, the samgati, made of 25 strips of cloth in 108 patches, which is worn when lecturing sutras or visiting a king. The second is the outer robe, the uttarasanga, made of 7 pieces, which is worn when bowing repentance ceremonies and worshipping the Buddha. The third is the inner robe in 5 pieces, the atharvasaka, which is worn at all times to work in, to travel in, and to entertain guests. With only 3 robes, a bowl, and a sitting cloth, one teaches others to be content and not be greedy for a lot of possessions. 3. Always begging for food. One always takes one's bowl to beg and does not cook for oneself. 4. Begging in succession. One begs from house to house in regular order without discriminating between the rich and the poor. If by the 7th house no food is obtained, one doesn't eat on that day. One doesn't think, I want to beg from the poor, not the rich, or I want to beg from the rich and not the poor. Mahakāssyapa once said, poor people are to be pitied. If they don't plant blessings now, in the future, they will be even poorer. He begged exclusively from the poor. Subhuti, on the other hand, begged only from the rich. If they are rich, he reasoned, we should help them continue to plant blessings and meritorious virtue. If they don't make offerings to the triple jewel, next life they'll have no money. And so he begged only from the rich. But the Buddha scolded both of them. You too have the hearts of arhats, he said, because you discriminate in your begging. To beg properly, one should go from house to house without discrimination. 5. Eating only once in the middle of the day. This means that you do not eat in the morning or in the evening, but only between the hours of 11 and 12 o'clock in the morning. Some who don't understand the Buddha Dharma think that eating once in the middle of the day means simply eating only one lunch. It actually means that one doesn't eat in the morning or in the evening, but only once in the middle of the day. In China, when one receives the precepts, they ask, "Nangchi," which means, "Can you keep them?" The preceptee answers, "Nangchi," which means, "I can." If one eats in the morning, noon, and evening, however, one can answer, nangcher, which sounds the same but means I can eat. Eating once a day at noon is one of the Buddha's rules because the Buddha only responded to offerings of food at noon. Gods eat in the morning, animals eat in the afternoon, and ghosts eat at night. Those who have left home do not eat at night because when ghosts come out at night to look for food and hear the sounds of chopsticks, they run to steal the food. The food the people are eating turns into fire in the ghosts' mouths, and they get angry and take revenge by making people sick. 6. Reducing the measure of what you eat. If you can eat 3 bowls, then eat only 2.5. If you can eat 2 bowls, then eat only 1.5. Always eat a little less. If you eat too much, your stomach can't hold it, and you'll have to do a lot of work on the toilet. Eat less. 7. Not drinking juices after noon. After 12, you don't drink apple juice, orange juice, milk, or any kind of juice at all, how much the less bean curd broth. True ascetics don't drink juices after noon. Some people cultivate 1 or 2 of these practices, and some cultivate more. Some cultivate only 1, and some cultivate all 12. It's not fixed. It depends upon how strong you are. Since cultivators can't avoid the question of clothing, food, and dwelling, these 12 ascetic practices have been established to deal with them. The 5 which concern dwelling are: 8. Dwelling in an aranya. Aranya is a Sanskrit word which means still and quiet place. In an aranya, one is left alone and there are no distracting noises. It is said, "What the eyes don't see won't cause the mouth to water. What the ears don't hear won't cause the mind to transgress." When people see food, they give rise to desire for it, and their mouths water. If your ears don't hear confusing sounds, there is no affliction in your mind. In a still, quiet place, it is easy to cultivate diligently and enter samadhi. 9. Dwelling at the foot of a tree. You live beneath a tree, but not under any one tree for more than 3 nights. After 2 nights, you move for fear that someone might come and make offerings to you. Cultivating ascetics don't like to have such dharma affinities or a lot of food and drink, and so they live under a tree. 10. Dwelling under the open sky. You don't live in a house or even under a tree, but right out in the open, meditating. 11. Dwelling in a graveyard. Living here, one is always on the alert. Look at them. They're dead. In the future, I'll be just like them. If I don't cultivate the way, what will I do when it's time to die? I'll die all muddled. Dwelling in a graveyard is a good cure for laziness. 12. Ribs not touching the mat. This means always sitting and never lying down, cultivating vigorously and not fearing suffering. These are the 5 ascetic practices which deal with dwelling. Mahakāssyapa cultivated not only one ascetic practice, but all 12 of them very thoroughly. Once, The Buddha moved over and asked him to sit beside him. The Buddha couldn't bear to see him cultivating ascetic practices at his age. "Kashyapa," he said, "you are over 200 years old, too old for ascetic practices. Take it easy. You can't endure them." The Venerable Kashyapa smiled. He didn't say whether or not he would obey the Buddha's instructions, but he returned and continued to practice just as before. The Buddha knew this and was extremely pleased. "Because within my Dharma, Mahakashyapa cultivates ascetic practices," he said, "the Dharma will remain long in the world. He's a great asset, foremost in asceticism." The 12 ascetic practices are cultivated by those who have left the home life. "I haven't left the home life," someone says. "Why are you explaining them to me?" This seems like a good question, but if you look into it, it's really irrelevant. Why? Perhaps you have not left home in this life, but how do you know that you did not leave home in a past life and cultivate these practices? Perhaps you have just forgotten, and so I am reminding you. Even if you did not leave home in past lives, perhaps next life the opportunity will arise, and the Bodhi seeds planted in this life will mature. Then your merit and virtue will be perfected, and you will feel very comfortable practicing asceticism. Because you heard about it in this life, next life you will enjoy cultivating it. Perhaps in the past you planted good causes, and now you reap the good fruit. Or perhaps in this life you plant good causes, and in a future life will reap the good fruit. No one can say that someone will always leave home, or that someone else will always be at home, or that someone will always be a common person. Common people all have the opportunity to realize Buddhahood. In the future, these 12 ascetic practices will be of great use. Maha Katyayana. Maha has been explained. Katyayana means literary elegance. Because of all the Buddha's disciples, this venerable one was the foremost in debate. No one could out-debate him. On one occasion, a non-Buddhist who believed in annihilationism said, "Buddhists speak of the revolving wheel of the 6 paths of rebirth and maintain that after death one may be reborn again as a person, but this principle is incorrect. Why? If people can come back as people, why hasn't anyone ever died and then returned home or sent a letter to his family? There is no basis for such a view. When people die, they go out like a lamp and they can't be born again. Buddhists imagine that there is rebirth, but actually there is none." Mahakatyayana replied, "You've asked why those who die do not return. Before I answer, first let me ask you a question. If someone were put in jail for a crime, could he return home at his convenience?" "No," said the non-Buddhist, "of course not." Katyayana continued, "When people descend to rebirth in the hells, it's just the same and they can't return. In fact, they are even less free to leave." The non-Buddhist said, "Granted that those born in the hells cannot return, still, those born in the heavens are very free. Why has none of them ever sent a letter home informing his family of his whereabouts?" Katyayana said, "What you say has principle, but, by way of analogy, suppose someone slipped and fell into a toilet. Not a flush toilet. Obviously, no one could fall into a flush toilet, but into a pit toilet about as big as a bedroom. Once he got out, would he decide he liked the aroma there and jump back in again? Heavens, no! Exclaimed the non-Buddhist. The world of men, said Katyayana, is just like a toilet, and birth in the heavens is like getting out. That's why no one comes back. Even if they did, there's the time difference to consider. For example, 1 day and night in the heaven of the 33 is equal to 100 years in the world of men. Born there, it would take a couple of days to find a place to stay and get settled, and by the time one returned on the 3rd day, one's friends would have long been dead. Thus, Mahakatyayana's eloquence defeated non-Buddhists who were attached to the idea of annihilationism or permanence. They lost every time. Katyayana's name also means fan cord. Soon after he was born, his father died and his mother wanted to remarry, but the child was a tie, like a fan cord, which prevented her from doing so. He is also called Good Shoulders, because his shoulders were beautiful, and Victorious Thinker, because his eloquence was unobstructed. There are 4 kinds of unobstructed eloquence. 1. With unobstructed eloquence in Dharma, one can explain the Dharma without obstacle. 2. With unobstructed eloquence in meaning, one can explain the Dharma's limitless meanings. 3. With unobstructed eloquence in phrasing, one's rhetoric is effective. 4. With the eloquence of unobstructed delight in speech, one takes delight in explaining the Dharma. Because he had these 4 kinds of unobstructed eloquence, Mahakatyayana was the foremost of the Buddha's disciples in debate. Mahakaustila. Mahakaustila was Shariputra's maternal uncle. His name means big knees, because big knees ran in the family. He too was gifted in debate. In order to defeat his nephew, he went to southern India to study non-Buddhist debating theories, rushing through his meals and gulping down water, studying so hard that he didn't even take time to wash his face or cut his nails. His nails grew so long, in fact, that he was nicknamed the long-nailed Brahmin. Ravata. Ravata means constellation. He was named after the 4th of the 28 constellations, the house, the rabbit, and the sun, because his parents prayed to this constellation in order to have their son. Ravata also means false unity. One day he went walking. When it got dark, he was far from home and decided to spend the night in a shack beside the road. Just as he was about to fall asleep, 2 ghosts walked in, a big ghost and a small ghost. The big ghost was really big, with a green face, red hair, and a huge mouth with 6 teeth hanging like elephant's tusks from it. One look at him would have scared you to death. The little ghost was even uglier. His eyes, ears, nose, and mouth had all moved to the middle of his face. The 2 came in dragging a corpse and asked Ravata, "What do you think? Should we eat this corpse or not?" What they meant was, "If you tell us to eat the corpse, we'll eat you instead. If you tell us not to eat the corpse, we won't have anything to eat, and so we'll have to eat you." The ghosts were going to eat him no matter what he said. Ravata didn't say a word. The big ghost bit off the corpse's legs, and the little ghost ripped off Ravata's legs and stuck them on the corpse. Then the big ghost ate the corpse's arms, and the little ghost ripped off Ravata's arms and stuck them on the corpse. The big ghost ate the entire corpse, and the little ghost replaced its parts one by one with parts of Ravata's body. Ravata then thought, "My body has been used to repair the corpse, and so now I don't have a body." The next day he ran screaming down the road, asking everyone he met, "Hey, take a look, do I have a body?" "What?" they said. The townspeople had no idea what he was talking about, but he kept pestering them until finally no one would come near him. "He's nuts," they said. Finally, Ravata met two high masters. "Shramanas," he asked, "do I have a body?" The two high masters happened to be arhats. Seeing that Ravata's potential for enlightenment was nearly mature, and that he would soon certify to the Dharma body, they instructed him, saying, "The body is basically created by a combination of causes and conditions. When the causes and conditions separate, the body is destroyed. There is nothing that is you, and nothing that is not you." Just as they said this, Ravata was enlightened. He left home and certified to the fruit, and thus his name means false unity. Of the Buddha's disciples, he was foremost in being not upset or confused. Sudipantaka and Mahapantaka were brothers. Sudipantaka's name means little roadside, and his big brother's name means big roadside. In India, it is the custom for women who are about to give birth to return to their parents' home. But Mahapantaka's mother didn't want to go home, and so she waited until the last minute to leave. Consequently, her son was born on the side of the road. When the time came to give birth to her second child, she should have known better, but again she waited. It happened again, and the second child was called Little Roadside. Although born in similar circumstances, the two brothers were very different in nature. The older brother was remarkably intelligent, but the younger one was remarkably stupid. He was so stupid that he couldn't even remember half a line of verse. The Buddha had instructed 500 arhats to teach him a verse, and they took turns day and night trying to teach him. Guard your mouth, unite your mind. With your body, don't offend. Do not annoy a single living being. Stay far away from non-beneficial bitter practices. Conduct like this can surely save the world. The three karmas of body, mouth, and mind should be pure. Do not cause others to be afflicted, and don't cultivate ascetic practices which are not in accord with the Dharma. These non-beneficial bitter practices include maintaining the morality of dogs or cows, worshipping fire, sleeping in ashes, and sleeping or sitting on beds of nails, which, of course, hurt a lot. One who cultivates virtue and at the same time avoids these meaningless practices can truly save the world. For many days, the 500 arhats combined their great spiritual powers trying to teach Little Roadside the verse. They taught him over and over, over and over, and he forgot it. "Recite the verse," they would say. "But I can't remember it," Little Roadside would answer. Finally, his brother scolded him. "You're good for nothing," he shouted. "You can't leave home. You're useless," and he chased him away. Little Roadside may not have had much of a memory, but he certainly had a temper. "If you won't let me leave home," he shouted, "I'll show you. I'll kill myself." He grabbed a rope, ran to the backyard, and climbed a tree, ready to hang himself. At that moment, Shakyamuni Buddha transformed himself into a tree spirit and explained the Dharma to him. "Your brother is your brother," he said, "and you are you. He says you can't leave home, but you don't have to listen. You can cultivate right here. Why should you kill yourself?" "That makes sense," sniffed Little Roadside. "He's he and I'm me. He has no right to tell me I can't leave home." "Right," said Shakyamuni Buddha. "Since you can't remember half a line, I'll give you 2 words. Sweep clean. Remember these 2 words and use them to sweep your heart clean. Sweep the floor and sweep your heart free from dust." Little Roadside said, "Yes, I'll sweep my heart." "Sweep what?" "Clean," said the Buddha. "Sweep clean." "Oh, yes," said Little Roadside. "Clean. What was the first word again?" "Sweep," smiled the Buddha. "Sweep clean," said Little Roadside, and he recited and swept, remembering the Buddha's instructions to sweep his heart clean. In less than a week, all of a sudden he was enlightened, understood everything very clearly, penetrated the real mark of all dharmas, and was even more intelligent than his brother. Little Roadside wasn't like us. We recite Namo Amitabha Buddha every day, but the more we recite, the more false thinking we have. If stupid people work hard and cultivate, they also can become enlightened. Don't say, "I'm too stupid to understand the sutras." If you don't understand them, don't read them. It will suffice to contemplate your heart, for when you have seen it clearly, you will be enlightened. How should you contemplate your own heart? Watch for false thinking and sweep it out of your heart. Then you can be enlightened. Little Roadside, stupid as he was, became enlightened. We are all much more intelligent than he and could no doubt remember sweep clean, hearing it only once. So don't cheat yourself or take yourself lightly. Go forward bravely and study the Buddha Dharma. Were I to speak the most wonderful Dharma, unless you believe it, it would be of no use to you. But were I to speak utter nonsense, should you actually practice, it would be wonderful Dharma. If you don't practice the wonderful Dharma, it is not wonderful for you. You must always make vigorous progress. Don't fall behind or get lazy. This is most important, for if you can always make progress, the day will certainly come when you will recognize your original face. Nanda. There are 3 disciples with the name Nanda: Ananda, Sundarananda, and Nanda. Nanda, whose name means wholesome bliss, was a cowherd before he heard the Buddha speak and decided to leave the home life. He is to be distinguished from Ananda, the Buddha's first cousin, and Sundarananda, the Buddha's little brother. Before leaving the home life, Nanda was a cowherd. when he listened to the Buddha preach the 11 matters of tending cows. Using the tending of cows as an analogy for cultivation of the way, Nanda knew that the Buddha was possessed of all knowledge, and he resolved to leave home and soon attain the fruit of arhatship. On one occasion, the Buddha instructed Nanda to preach to a group of 500 bhikshunis. Hearing him speak, they all attained arhatship. In the past, the 500 bhikshunis had been the concubine of a king. The king was a great Dharma protector, and he built a large pagoda in honor of a Buddha. The concubines believed in the Buddha and made daily offerings at the pagoda, vowing that they would in the future all obtain liberation with the king. The king was a former incarnation of Nanda. Sundarananda. Sundarananda was the Buddha's little brother. He loved his wife, Sundari, more than anything. The two of them were as if glued together, walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. They were never apart. One day, as the Buddha returned from the palace where he had gone to collect alms, he passed Sundari and Nanda, who were having lunch. When he saw the Buddha, he went out to fill his bowl. As he left, Sundari spit on the floor and said, "You may give the Buddha food, but if you don't return before that dries, you're in trouble." "Okay," said Sundarananda, and off he went. What do you think the Buddha did? Every time Sundarananda took a step forward to hand the Buddha his bowl, the Buddha moved away with his spiritual powers so that, in what seemed just like a few steps, Sundarananda suddenly found himself in the Jeta Grove, 5 miles from home. As soon as they arrived, the Buddha shaved Sundarananda's head. Sundarananda had no desire to leave the home life because he did not want to give up his wife. But the Buddha was his older brother, and so he complied. "I can cut off my hair," he thought, "but the first chance I get, I'm going to run away." As day after day went by, Sundarananda got more and more nervous. The Buddha and the Arhats were staying in the Jeta Grove, and Sundarananda had no chance to escape. One day the Buddha and his Arhats went out for lunch and left Sundarananda to watch the door. "Today is the day," thought Sundarananda. "I'm definitely going home." Before the Buddha left, however, he had instructed Sundarananda to sweep the floor. Eager to be on his way, he went right to work, but every time he got the dust together, a gust of wind blew it all over the room. He tried closing the window, but when he closed one, the other blew open. Strange. This went on for 2 or 3 hours. "The Buddha will be back any minute," he thought. "Dust or no dust, I'm leaving." He threw the broom down and ran. "The Buddha uses the main road," he thought, "so I'll take the side road." He ran for a couple of miles when suddenly he saw the Buddha walking toward him. He hid behind a tree to wait for him to pass, moving slowly around the back of the tree so that he would not be seen. Who would have guessed that the Buddha would follow him around the tree, step by step? Sundarananda walked in one direction, and the Buddha followed him. Sundarananda reversed his steps, and so did the Buddha. A collision was inevitable. There was no place to hide. "What are you doing?" asked the Buddha. "I thought you were watching the door." "I waited and waited," said the embarrassed Sundarananda, "but you didn't return, so I came to welcome you. I thought that your bowl might be too heavy. I came to help you carry your bowl." "Wonderful," said the Buddha. What a good little brother. Now let's go back to the Jeta Grove. The Buddha knew that Sundarananda wasn't happy, and one day he said, Sundarananda, come with me for a hike in the mountains. All right, said Sundarananda, thinking, if I get the chance, I'll surely run away. The mountains were full of monkeys, 500 or 600 of them. Sundarananda, said the Buddha, compare these monkeys with your wife. Are they more beautiful than she? Sundarananda said, Why, Buddha, of course Sundari is more beautiful. Monkeys are ugly. How can you compare them with Sundari? You're quite intelligent, said the Buddha. You know that your wife is prettier than the monkeys. When they had returned to the Jeta Grove, the Buddha said, Sundarananda, you have never been to the heavens. Want to go? First the mountains, now the heavens. I wonder what they're like. Sundarananda and the Buddha sat in meditation, and the Buddha used his spiritual powers to take him to the heavens, where they visited a palace, where 500 goddesses and many servants were working. The heavens were 1,000,000 times more beautiful than the world of men, and Sundarananda had never seen such beautiful women. Naturally, he fell in love. Don't you have a leader? He asked. Who is your master? Our master hasn't arrived, they said. He's Shakyamuni Buddha's little brother Sundarananda. He's left home to cultivate the way, and in the future he will be reborn with these 500 goddesses as his wives. Sundarananda was delighted. I don't think I'll run away after all, he thought. I'll cultivate diligently and get reborn in the heavens instead. Sundarananda, said the Buddha, are the goddesses more beautiful than Sundari, or is she more beautiful than they? Compared to the goddesses, Sundari is as ugly as a monkey, said Sundarananda. Which would you prefer? Said the Buddha. The goddesses, said Sundarananda. Sundari is beautiful, but the goddesses are out of this world. In the future, you'll be born here, said the Buddha. Now let's go back and cultivate. Sundarananda meditated day and night, cultivating to be a heavenly lord. The Buddha knew that heavenly blessings have outflows, are not ultimate, and that those who enjoy them can still fall to lower realms. Wishing to wake Sundarananda up, he said, There's nothing going on today. Would you like to visit the hells? I've heard that they aren't very scenic, said Sundarananda. But if you want to take me there, I'll go. They visited the hells of the Mountain of Knives, the Sword Tree Hell, the Fire Sea Hell, the Ice Hell, and many others. Finally, they came to a hell where 2 ghosts were boiling a pot of oil. The lazy ghosts had let the fire go out, and the oil wasn't even simmering. What are you 2 doing? Said Sundarananda. Fooling around and going to sleep? The 2 ghosts opened their eyes and stared. What do you care? They said. We're in no hurry. We're waiting for someone who isn't due for a long, long time. Who? Said Sundarananda. Shakyamuni Buddha's little brother Sundarananda, if you must know. They said. He left home but seeks only the blessings of the heavens and 500 goddesses. He'll be living in the heavens for 1,000 years, but in his confusion, he will forget how to cultivate and will commit many offenses. This will create evil karma and drag him into the hells to be deep fried in this very pot. Every hair on Sundarananda's body stood straight up on end, and every pore ran with cold sweat. "How could this happen to me?" he moaned. From that moment on, he stopped cultivating for rebirth in the heavens and resolved to end birth and death. Soon he certified to arhatship. Sundarananda was extremely handsome. The Buddha had 32 marks, and Sundarananda had 30. Some people even mistook him for the Buddha. One day, Shariputra was debating with some non-Buddhists who were even more extreme than many hippies. They didn't wear any clothes at all. "This is our original face," they said. "Why disguise yourself by wearing clothes?" Shariputra, although not very tall, was extremely intelligent. His replies left them speechless, as if they had no mouths at all. Later, when Sundarananda, who was tall and handsome, happened along, the nudists said, "If that short little bhikshu beat us, how could we possibly out-talk this tall one?" They bowed to Sundarananda as their teacher and left the home life. Sundarananda had a lot of faithful disciples, and their cultivation was very successful. This is the story of Sundarananda, who gave up his wife for the goddesses, and then, fearing the hells, cultivated the way. Ananda. Ananda was the Buddha's cousin. His name means rejoicing, and was chosen because he was born on the day the Buddha awoke to the unsurpassed enlightenment. Both his birth and the Buddha's realization were causes for rejoicing. Of all of the great disciples, the Venerable Ananda was foremost in learning. He edited and compiled all the Buddha's sutras and remembered clearly, without ever forgetting, all the Dharma the Buddha spoke. Ananda's memory was extremely accurate, and his samadhi was firm. In fact, Ananda had 8 inconceivable states. 1. He never accepted special invitations. In the Dharma Sutra, we read that because he accepted a special lunch invitation, Ananda became involved in an unfortunate encounter with Matangi's daughter. Matangi used a Brahma heaven mantra to lure Ananda into a house of prostitution. Then the Buddha spoke the Shurangama mantra and ordered Manjushri Bodhisattva to take the mantra to rescue him. Ananda never accepted another special invitation. They're too dangerous. For a member of the Sangha to go out alone to receive offerings from Dharma-protecting laymen is called accepting special invitations, and is against the Buddha's rules. If there are 10 bhikshus, but a layman favors only one with an invitation, he may not go. All 10 must go. The Venerable Ananda realized his mistake and never made it again. 2. He never wore the Buddha's clothes. The bhikshus liked to wear the Buddha's old clothing. Some even fought over it, feeling that wearing the Buddha's clothes would increase their wisdom and wipe away their offenses. Actually, they were just greedy. Ananda never wore them. 3. He did not look at what he should not look at. What he was supposed to see, he looked at. What he was not supposed to see, he avoided. He did not look at what violated the code of morality, but looked only at what was in accord with it. 4. He did not give rise to defiled thoughts. The Venerable Ananda followed the Buddha to the heavens, to the palace of the Asuras, and to the palace of the dragons. He saw the heavenly women, the Asura women, and the dragon women, the most beautiful women in all creation, but he felt no sexual desire. 5. He knew which samadhi the Buddha had entered. The other bhikshus didn't know. 6. He knew the benefits received by the beings who were taught and transformed by the Buddha in samadhi. 7. He understood completely all the Dharma the Buddha spoke. 8. He never had to ask to have a Dharma repeated. He remembered it all and never needed to hear one twice. No one but Ananda had these 8 inconceivable states. Concerning not accepting special invitations, Shramaneras cannot eat or drink when they please, but must eat with the assembly. Novices and bhikshus alike cannot live with a group and yet eat separately. Even a cup of tea should be taken with a group without assuming a special style. If everyone doesn't receive an apple, an orange, or even a piece of candy, no single person is allowed to eat them on his own.